welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name's Emily and I am a dietitian. So today I wanted to talk about my initial experience in the community. So I was a band 5 acute dietitian for around 10 or 11 months following graduating from the University of Nottingham last year. I have done a video on my university experience which I will link in the eye if you are interested. But yeah, so I graduated last July and then began my job as an acute dietitian in a big university teaching hospital. It was then decided that I was going to rotate into community, so they offered out the opportunity and I did volunteer. I'm now at the end of my first week in community. So I wanted to sit down and give sort of an overview of the main differences between them. But of course I do need to mention that I have started in community during a time where community is very different itself. So a lot of the work would have been visiting patients' homes, care homes, patients coming into clinics. Due to lockdown and social distancing, that is not happening at the minute. So the community job that I'm doing is mainly telephone consultations, so whether that be an initial assessment or a follow-up. My acute job towards the end of my time there was also very different, so it's probably not the best time to be making this video, but it's reflecting the situation that is happening right now, and I thought it might help people who are looking for a job right now, because the situation is happening and people will be looking for jobs, so it's important to know what to expect now, not only in the future when everything goes back to normal, you'd hope, whatever a new normal is going to be. So when I left the acute setting, it was very busy, a very dynamic time to be working in acute. We of course had lots of virus patients. We also had lots of other patients, as we would usually have. So we did find that the caseload really fluctuated, because initially when there was a large wave of virus patients coming in, a lot of the wards were dedicated to that, which meant we didn't have a lot of non-viral patients coming in. So our caseload was at that point fairly manageable and fairly low compared to what it has been. But over recent months it did start to pick up, and we found that more non-virus patients were coming in, as well as virus patients who'd previously been intubated on ICU were coming off ICU and coming to the respiratory wards, which we as general dietitians covered. So as much as the acute job involved going to the wards, it also involved telephone consultations. Our clinics were cancelled. If you'd like to hear more about how we as an acute team adapted to the pandemic, I did do a video on being a dietitian during the pandemic, so I will link that up in the eye. But yes, clinics were cancelled, so we were doing more telephone consultations. And now I'm in the community, so I've never had any experience in community before, so I never did any of my placements there at all, not even for a day. So the only experience I had was one day we went down towards the start of me beginning my job in acute. They thought it'd be beneficial for us to sort of see what went on in community, how the processes worked, and chat a bit about more cost efficient supplements and things like that. So that's all the experience I had, was one day of chatting with the community dietitians down at the community hospital. And now I'm there full time. So the first thing I'd say is we're based at a community hospital. Not every community dietitian will be, but the community hospital is so much smaller than the big teaching hospital, and I'm actually quite enjoying it because there's a lot less running rounds, which makes you feel like you can be more time efficient. So in an acute setting I did feel like I did more walking than seeing patients sometimes, because you'd be going up and down the levels, but the community hospital, it's only a couple of floors and everything's just nice and easily accessible. We also do have some days working from home, so I believe my line manager tries to put everyone in for at least one day a week at home if they choose to do so. And due to them using system 1, which we'll talk a bit about next, this is possible to do sort of encrypted and confidential at home, as long as you are in a shut room and you're not obviously saying patient details in front of your family or friends. All hail system 1. If anyone has any experiences with system 1 and would like to talk to me about it, leave them in a comment down below, because honestly I have never been so happy to work with a clinical system in my life. I'm sure there's downsides, I've not discovered them yet. At my acute job we had paper records and it could be very frustrating and very inefficient to have to wait for other healthcare professionals to be done with the notes, or they've gone missing, or they haven't gone to the ward with the patient. But electronic notes I'm finding so much easier to use, so quick, everyone's got access to them, everyone can read your entry and you can read everyone else's, so I'm really enjoying using System 1. It also does allow for working from home. Obviously the bulk of the difference is the work, so in an acute setting it was mainly ward work, particularly towards the end where the clinics got cancelled and the patient talks and healthcare assistant talks got cancelled. So it was, I'd say, probably 95% ward work along with the admin that brings, whereas now I'm in community, which is basically 95% telephone calls. So I will link my video on my tips for telephone consultations and remote working in the eye. I am slowly getting to grips with all the telephone calls, and the more I do it, the more confident I'm getting. They do have a pro forma on System 1 that they follow, which I'm finding very useful. And I am finding that they're quite efficient because you're not relying on people being on time, you are just sort of ringing them as and when, really, unless they've booked an appointment, in which case you're aiming to bring them on time. And the write-up is all there, you don't need to wait for the notes, so you can write it up after the patient's gone. You can, if you're skilled, I'm not skilled, you can hold the phone and type them at the time, or you can make some paper notes and then type them up after. But I'm finding it very speedy, which of course is better for the patients because then you can see more of them in a day, making you more efficient. Another big difference between my experience of working in acute and community is in the acute setting I was wearing tunics and like black sketchers and work trousers, and in community I'm wearing a smart casual dress code currently. I'm not sure how this will change as the social distancing changes and as we are going out to more places. I'm not sure, I've not experienced that yet, but in my current experience we are wearing smart casual clothes, obviously following appropriate workwear guidance. But yes, personally I'm very excited about it. I think you're either a uniform person or you're not. I will say that I'm definitely not, and I'm loving being able to feel a bit smarter and pick out my clothes in the morning. The teams are very different, so within my little general team and in the acute setting it felt very much like a little community, and then in the community team it's very similar. However, in the acute setting we were based in an office with a lot of different specialities, so having that smaller team is really nice in community, and we try and have a weekly, if not 2 weekly catch-ups and a big team meeting every month, which we were really struggling to find the time to do in acute, even though we were trying. So it's nice to have a bit more time. And on the theme of having a bit more free time, I've managed to catch up on a lot of CPD, which is vital of course in our role. And in the acute setting I was finding that I was struggling to allow time for things like that because of the urgency of the patients on the ward that needed to be seen. However, with organising your own time and being a bit more independent with your workload, which is also another quality in community, it means that if you want to watch a webinar you can block out a time slot for that and make sure that you catch up around that, and as long as you're managing your own caseload that shouldn't be a problem. So I think that's a lot of the differences that I've identified so far, but it is early days, it's only been a week, and hopefully I can do some more videos in the future when I get more of a feel for community. If you've also had experience in community and acute, let me know down below which one was for you and we can have a little chat about it. I hope this video was useful for you. Please give it a big thumbs up if you think it was, and don't forget to subscribe down below if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.